Hello and welcome to Lyla's Lullabies, where we spend time exploring with Lyla, a traveler who wanders the world at her own pace while sharing her most enriching and restorative moments with you. In tonight's story, we'll follow Lyla as she explores the historic Adriatic city of Dubrovnik in Croatia. There's nowhere you need to be, nothing you need to remember. Just settle in, get comfortable, and let yourself go. We're so glad you're here. Whenever you're ready, let's begin. Lyla stood before Pile Gate in the early morning, the sun just beginning to warm the pale limestone walls of Dubrovnik's old town. September in Croatia meant the peak summer crowds had thinned, the temperature still warm but not oppressive, the light golden and clear. The gate itself was impressive, a stone bridge crossing a moat, leading to the arched entrance in the massive defensive walls that had protected this city for centuries. She crossed the bridge, her footsteps echoing slightly, and passed through the gate's tunnel-like passage. A statue of Saint Blaise, Dubrovnik's patron saint, stood in a niche above, watching over all who entered. Then she emerged into the old town, and the view took her breath away. Directly ahead stretched Stradun, the main street, a wide pedestrian thoroughfare paved in smooth limestone that gleamed in the morning sun. The street was lined with buildings of uniform height and style, their facades a consistent pale stone, their shutters painted in muted colors, the whole creating a harmonious architectural ensemble. The street stretched away toward the clock tower at the far end, perfectly straight, inviting exploration. To her left, just inside the gate, stood Onofrio's large fountain, a circular structure with water spouts shaped like carved faces, water flowing from 16 of them. The fountain had provided fresh water to the city for centuries, and even now, people stop to drink from it, filling bottles, splashing their faces in the cool water. Lyla joined them, cupping her hands under one of the spouts, the water cold and pure, refreshing in the warming day. An elderly woman next to her smiled and nodded, a gesture of shared appreciation for this simple pleasure. She began walking along Stradun, the limestone smooth under her feet, polished by centuries of footsteps. The street was quiet at this early hour, just a few other tourists and some shop owners opening their doors, preparing for the day. The morning light created long shadows, emphasizing the texture of the stone, the architectural details visible in sharp relief. The buildings along Stradun housed the shops and cafes now, but their structure remained from the city's reconstruction after the great earthquake of 1667, when much of Dubrovnik had been destroyed and rebuilt in the Baroque style. The uniformity of height and design was deliberate, creating visual harmony, a civic decision that the rebuilt city should present a unified face. She passed a small cafe already open, its tables set out on the street, and decided to stop for coffee. The server, a young woman with dark hair and a welcoming smile, brought her a menu. "Good morning. You're up early. That's the best time to see Dubrovnik." "It's beautiful," Lyla said. "May I have an espresso, please?" "Of course. Would you like anything to eat? We have fresh pastries." "Just the coffee, thank you." The espresso arrived quickly, strong and smooth, served in a small white cup. Lyla sipped it slowly, watching the street begin to wake. More shops opening, a few more tourists appearing, the city transitioning from night to day. After finishing her coffee, she continued down Stradun, stopping at the Franciscan monastery on her left. The entrance led into a cloister, one of the most beautiful spaces in Dubrovnik, a courtyard surrounded by arched columns, a garden at the center with a well, the whole space peaceful and contemplative. She walked slowly around the cloister, admiring the carved capitals on the columns, each one different, decorated with plants and animals, geometric patterns, and human faces. The garden in the center was simple but lovely, herbs and flowers arranged around the old well, benches inviting rest and reflection. The monastery also housed one of the oldest pharmacies in Europe still operating, and she peeked inside, seeing the beautiful wooden cabinets and ceramic jars, the space a museum and working pharmacy both, past and present coexisting. Back on Stradun, she continued toward the eastern end, passing the Sponza Palace, a Gothic Renaissance building with an elegant arcade on its ground floor. The palace had served various civic functions over the centuries: customs house, mint, treasury, and now housed the city archives, its beautiful courtyard visible through the arched entrance. The street opened into Luja Square, the heart of the old town, where several important buildings clustered. The rector's palace stood to her right, another Gothic Renaissance structure, its arched loggia elegant and restrained. The palace had been the seat of government during Dubrovnik's time as an independent republic, and the inscription above the entrance still read, Obliti privatorum publica curat. Forget private affairs, deal with public ones. Across the square stood the Cathedral of the Assumption, its Baroque facade serene and imposing. She went inside, where the interior was cool and dim after the bright morning outside, the space quieter, more intimate than the exterior suggested. The treasury held relics and religious art accumulated over centuries, but Lyla was drawn to simply sitting in a pew, appreciating the peaceful atmosphere. After leaving the cathedral, she made her way to the entrance to the city walls, ready for the walk that would give her a complete view of Dubrovnik. The entrance fee was modest, and she began the climb immediately, the stone steps ascending steeply. The walls of Dubrovnik were remarkably complete, nearly 2 kilometers of fortifications encircling the entire old town, varying in height and thickness, studded with towers and fortresses. Walking the full circuit would take at least an hour, longer if she stopped frequently to admire the views, which she knew she would. The first section led upward along the landward side of the walls, and with each step the view expanded. She could look down into the streets and courtyards of the old town, seeing the red-tiled roofs creating a pattern, the churches and palaces rising above them, the whole city revealing its layout, its logic. To her left, outside the walls, the landscape rose toward Mount Srđ, the hill that dominated Dubrovnik's backdrop. Houses climbed the slopes, white and terracotta, and she could see the cable car ascending to the summit, where fortifications and a viewpoint offered panoramic vistas. She reached Mincheta Tower, the highest point of the walls, and climbed its interior stairs to the top platform. From here, the view was spectacular, 360 degrees of Dubrovnik and its surroundings. The old town spread below, its roofs and streets visible in miniature. Beyond the walls, the Adriatic stretched away, impossibly blue, dotted with islands. To the north and east, mountains rose, their peaks softened by distance. She stood at the tower for a long time, just looking, trying to take it all in. Other visitors came and went, everyone quiet, awed by the view. A couple took photos of each other. The city spread behind them. A family pointed out landmarks, the parents explaining to their children what they were seeing. Lyla continued along the walls, the path now following the seaward side, offering constant views of the Adriatic. The sea was calm this morning, barely a ripple, its color, that Mediterranean blue that seemed too vivid to be real. A few boats moved across it, tour boats heading to nearby islands, sailing vessels enjoying the perfect conditions, a cruise ship in the distance. The walls here were thicker, more massive, built to withstand attack from the sea. Fortress towers jutted out at intervals, their purpose both defensive and architectural, adding drama to the fortifications. She descended slightly to reach Bokar Fortress, a circular tower at the southwest corner of the walls, designed by the famous Renaissance architect Michelozzo. The fortress was beautifully proportioned, its form following function, every element considered for both defense and aesthetics. From Bokar, she could see the entrance to the old port, where boats came and went, kayakers paddled along the base of the walls, and swimmers enjoyed the clear water. The port had been Dubrovnik's lifeline for centuries, connecting the independent republic to the world through trade and diplomacy. The walk continued around the seaward walls, the views changing constantly, sometimes looking down at the water lapping against the fortifications, sometimes looking across at the islands. Lokrum close by, others further out, sometimes looking back at the old town from different angles, each perspective revealing new details. She passed other towers and fortresses, each with its own name and history, each positioned strategically to defend a particular approach or angle. The walls were remarkably well preserved, the stone weathered but solid, maintained through the centuries by a city that understood their value both practical and symbolic. The final section brought her around to the eastern walls, looking back toward Pile Gate where she'd started. The circuit was nearly complete, and she felt she'd gained something invaluable, a complete understanding of the old town's layout, its relationship to the sea and the land, the way the walls embraced and protected it. She descended the final steps and emerged back into the old town, now much busier than when she'd started. The morning had progressed, tour groups had arrived, the streets were full of visitors. But having seen it all from above, having walked the walls, she felt a connection to the city that street-level walking alone wouldn't have provided. She found a small restaurant on a quiet side street and stopped for lunch, ready to rest after the walking. The restaurant was family-run, the kind of place locals used, with simple wooden tables and a handwritten menu. A woman who might have been the owner came to take her order, her English accented but clear. "Welcome! Have you been walking the walls?" "Yes, just finished," Lyla said. "Ah, you must be thirsty. I'll bring water right away. Would you like to see the menu, or shall I suggest something?" "Please suggest something. I'd love to try a local food." "Perfect. I'll bring you crni risotto, black risotto, made with cuttlefish ink. It's a Dalmatian specialty. And some fresh bread and olive oil. You'll love it." The risotto arrived, dramatically black, creamy and savory, flavored with seafood and garlic, the taste of the Adriatic in every bite. The bread was crusty and warm, the olive oil golden and fruity, perfect for dipping. She ate slowly, savoring the food, feeling grateful for this meal, this restaurant, this city. The woman checked on her once, smiling at her obvious enjoyment. "You like it?" "It's wonderful," Lyla said. "Thank you for the recommendation. Dubrovnik has many treasures. The walls you saw, yes. But also the food, the traditions, the people. You must come back in different seasons. Each one shows a different face of the city." After lunch, Lyla walked back toward Pile Gate, but instead of leaving the old town, she followed signs pointing to Fort Lovrijenac. The path led her outside the western walls, down a series of stone steps, toward a massive fortress perched on a rocky cliff overlooking the sea. Fort Lovrijenac stood detached from the city walls, built on a promontory that rose dramatically from the Adriatic. The fortress had been crucial to Dubrovnik's defense, controlling the sea approach from the west, and the inscription above its entrance proclaimed "Non bene pro toto libertas venditur auro." "Freedom is not to be sold for all the gold in the world," the motto of the Dubrovnik Republic. She climbed the steep steps to the entrance, already impressed by the fortress's commanding position. The walls were thick and powerful, designed to withstand cannon fire, the whole structure a testament to Dubrovnik's determination to maintain independence. Inside, she climbed more stairs to the upper terrace, and the view was breathtaking. From this height, she could see the entire western approach to Dubrovnik, the walls of the old town to her left, the sea stretching away in front, and below, the rocky coastline where waves broke against stone. The fortress's interior was spacious, with several levels connected by stone staircases. She explored slowly, finding the various platforms and rooms, imagining what it must have been like to garrison this place, to stand watch over the sea approaches, to live in this powerful but isolated position. From the highest point, she could see back toward the old town, the walls and towers she'd walked earlier now visible from a new angle, the red roofs glowing in the afternoon sun. The perspective reinforced what she'd learned. Dubrovnik's defenses had been formidable, layered, and strategic, designed by people who understood that their independence depended on their ability to defend it. After exploring the fortress thoroughly, she descended back to sea level and decided to walk toward Srđ beach, wanting to experience Dubrovnik's coastline more directly. The path led her along the base of the fortress, past rocky outcroppings, where locals had set up small areas for swimming, ladders leading down into the clear water. The walk to Srđ beach took her along a coastal path, the sea always visible to her right, the cliffs and fortress walls rising to her left. Other walkers and joggers shared the path, everyone enjoying the late afternoon, the heat beginning to ease. Srđ beach appeared ahead, a small pebble beach tucked into a cove, with a cafe and changing facilities. The beach was busy but not crowded, families with children, couples sunbathing, a few brave swimmers in the water despite the season advancing. Lyla found a spot on the pebbles and sat, taking off her shoes, feeling the smooth stones under her feet. The water was incredibly clear, that Adriatic transparency where you could see every stone on the bottom, fish moving in small schools near the shore. She watched people swimming, their enjoyment obvious, the water clearly refreshing. Children played at the water's edge, building structures with pebbles, shrieking when waves washed them away. The scene was timeless and peaceful, the simple pleasure of sea and sun, unchanged across centuries. After resting at the beach, she made her way back toward the cable car station, which was located just outside Pile Gate. The afternoon was progressing toward evening, and she wanted to reach the summit of Mount Srđ in time for sunset to see Dubrovnik from its highest viewpoint as the light changed. The cable car station was modern and efficient, and she bought a round-trip ticket. The cable car arrived quickly, a glass-sided cabin that offered views in all directions. She stepped in with a handful of other passengers, and they began their ascent. The climb was steep and dramatic, the cable car rising swiftly above the old town. Davidao. With each moment, the view expanded. First just the walls and immediate surroundings, then the full extent of the old town, then the coastline north and south, then the islands scattered across the Adriatic, then the mountains inland, the whole geography of the region revealed. Other passengers exclaimed at the views, taking photos, pointing out landmarks. Lyla stood at the glass, watching Dubrovnik diminish below, the city becoming a perfect miniature, its organization and beauty even more apparent from this height. The cable car reached the summit, and they stepped out onto the platform. The view was extraordinary. Dubrovnik spread below, the old town immediately recognizable, the Lapad Peninsula stretching to the west, the airport visible in the distance, and everywhere, the Adriatic, vast and blue, dotted with islands, the horizon line blurred where water met sky. A restaurant and viewing platform occupied the summit, along with the ruins of Fort Imperial, a Napoleonic fortress that had been damaged in the recent war, but left partially ruined, as a reminder. Information panels told the story of the 1990 siege when this mountain had been occupied and used to shell the city below, and the contrast between that recent violence and the current peace was sobering. Lyla walked around the viewing platform, seeing Dubrovnik from every angle. To the north she could see the mountains of Bosnia and Herzegovina. To the south, the coast curved away toward Montenegro. To the east, inland Croatia stretched away, green and mountainous. A man standing nearby noticed her looking at the information panels. "Difficult history," he said with a slight accent, "but the city survived." Dubrovnik always survives. "It's remarkable," Lyla said, "the resilience." "Yes. We rebuilt after the earthquake in 1667. We rebuilt after the war in the 1990. The walls protect us, but also the spirit of the people. This city means something to us." He nodded and moved on, and Lyla continued her circuit of the platform, thinking about what he'd said, about the layers of history visible from here, about survival and reconstruction. The sun was lowering now, approaching the horizon, and the light was becoming golden. She found a good spot and settled in to watch, knowing this would be the perfect end to her day in Dubrovnik. Other people gathered too, everyone drawn by the same instinct, the shared appreciation of sunset's beauty. The restaurant had outdoor seating, and she decided to have dinner here, to experience the sunset and evening from the summit. She was seated at a table on the terrace, with an unobstructed view of Dubrovnik and the sea. The waiter brought her a menu and suggested the catch of the day, sea bass, grilled simply with lemon and olive oil. "It's fresh this morning from Bruges," he said. "Our chef prepares it very simply, lets the fish speak for itself." "That sounds perfect," Lyla said. "And a glass of white wine, please, something local." "I'll bring you poship from Korčula Island. It goes beautifully with the fish." The wine arrived first, pale gold, crisp and mineral, tasting of the sea and the sun. She sipped it slowly, watching the light change, the sky beginning its evening transformation. The sea bass came beautifully presented, the fish whole and grilled to perfection, its skin crispy, its flesh tender and flaky. The lemon and olive oil were the only seasonings needed, enhancing rather than masking the fish's natural flavor. A side of Swiss chard and potatoes completed the meal, simple and delicious. She ate slowly, savoring each bite, watching the sunset progress. The sun was approaching the horizon now, the light becoming more intense, painting the sky in deepening shades of gold and orange. Below, Dubrovnik was catching the evening light, the limestone walls glowing, the red roofs vivid, the whole city beautiful in a way that was almost painful, too perfect to be real, yet absolutely tangible. The sun touched the horizon, and the colors intensified, orange and pink, purple appearing in the higher reaches of sky, the clouds catching fire. The sea reflected it all, becoming a mirror, doubling the beauty. Lyla watched until the sun disappeared completely, the colors fading gradually to pastels, the light softening. The city below began to glow with its own lights, street lights, and building lights creating new patterns, the walls illuminated, strategic lighting making the fortifications dramatic against the darkening sky. Stars appeared, first a few, then dozens, the sky deepening to night. The restaurant's lights were low, candles on tables, allowing the view to dominate. Other diners spoke in hushed tones, everyone under the spell of the evening. After finishing her meal, Lyla ordered coffee, a simple espresso, and sat with it, content to linger, not ready to descend yet. The night was mild, the air still warm from the day's sun, and from this height she could see the full extent of the coast, lit settlements marking the shoreline north and south, the dark sea beyond. She thought about her day, about the journey from Pile Gate through the old town, the walk on the walls, the visit to Fort Lovrijenac, the peaceful time at Srđ Beach, and now this, the summit of Mount Srđ with its panoramic views and spectacular sunset. Dubrovnik had revealed itself in layers. First, the immediate beauty of its streets and buildings, then the comprehensive view from the walls, then the defensive perspective from Lovrijenac, then the human scale of the beach, and finally this, the God's eye view that showed the city in its full geographic and historical context. The Pearl of the Adriatic, they called it, and from here she could see why. The city glowed like a jewel, precious and carefully set, protected by its walls, positioned perfectly between sea and mountain, preserved through centuries of care and determination. When she finally felt ready, she paid and walked to the cable car for the descent. The cabin was nearly empty, just her and one other couple, and the ride down offered yet another perspective, the city growing larger, more detailed, the individual buildings becoming distinct, the streets visible, the whole transforming from distant visible to immediate reality. At the bottom, she walked slowly back through Pile Gate one last time, the old town now fully in its evening mode. Restaurants were full, their outdoor tables occupied by diners, the sound of conversation and laughter filling the streets. Stradun was still busy with people strolling, enjoying the mild night, the limestone paving glowing under streetlights. She walked the length of Stradun once more, seeing it in yet another light, appreciating how the city transformed with each phase of the day, each perspective offering something new while the essential beauty remained constant. Back at her hotel outside the walls, she went to her room and opened the window, letting in the night air. The sound of the city drifted in, music from restaurants, voices, the distant sound of waves against the shore, the complex music of a living city. She stood at the window, looking toward the old town, its walls and towers illuminated, visible against the dark hillside behind. The lights created a golden outline, marking the city's shape, its boundaries, its enduring presence. Lyla felt deeply satisfied, grateful for this day, for Dubrovnik's generosity in revealing itself. The city had lived up to its reputation, had offered beauty and history, had shown both its strength and its grace, had demonstrated that some places earned their legendary status through centuries of careful preservation and genuine worth. The night was peaceful, and she remained at the window for a long time, not quite ready to let the day go, wanting to hold these final moments, this view, this feeling of having truly seen something remarkable, something that would stay with her, part of her collection of beautiful places, of days well spent, of cities that open themselves to those willing to walk their walls and their streets and look with clear eyes and open hearts.